Police searched the forest for 3 days. They never found the farmhouse, but they did find Ryan's car, parked exactly where he said it would be. The rain had been falling for so long that it no longer sounded like rain. It sounded like the entire sky had cracked open, pouring endless sheets of water onto the deserted highway below. Every few seconds, a flash of lightning tore across the clouds, briefly revealing the empty road before darkness swallowed everything again. Ryan Carter tightened his grip on the steering wheel as he drove home after finishing a late shift at the office. His windshield wipers struggled to keep up with the storm, and the farther he drove, the more isolated the world became. The last town was nearly 20 miles behind him. His phone had completely lost its signal, and not a single pair of headlights had appeared in over half an hour. The silence inside the car was broken only by the steady hum of the engine and the relentless tapping of rain against the roof, until the radio suddenly exploded with loud static. Ryan instinctively reached toward the dashboard to turn it off, but before his fingers touched the dial, a brilliant flash of lightning illuminated the road ahead. Standing in the middle of the highway was an old man. Ryan slammed on the brakes. The tires skidded across the rain-soaked asphalt before finally stopping only a few feet from the stranger. His heart hammered against his chest as he stared through the windshield, trying to understand why anyone would be standing alone in the middle of nowhere during a storm like this. The old man wore a long black raincoat that hung almost to the ground, and a wide-brimmed hat covered his face completely. He wasn't waving for help. He wasn't trying to move. He simply stood there, perfectly still, as though he had been waiting for someone to arrive. Ryan hesitated before opening the car door. The cold rain hit him instantly, soaking his clothes within seconds. "Sir," he called over the storm, "are you all right?" The old man didn't answer. Instead, he slowly lifted one trembling hand and pointed toward the dark forest beside the highway. Ryan followed the direction of his finger. Hidden between the trees was a faint yellow light. It looked like the light from an old house, barely visible through the curtain of rain. Confused, Ryan turned back to ask the old man what he meant, but the road was empty. The stranger had vanished. There were no footprints on the wet pavement, no sound of someone walking away, and nowhere he could have disappeared in only a few seconds. A cold shiver crawled up Ryan's spine. Before he could make sense of what had happened, his car engine suddenly shut off by itself. He climbed back inside and tried the ignition again. Nothing again, nothing. The dashboard lights flickered once before fading into darkness. With no phone signal, no passing traffic, and the storm growing stronger by the minute, Ryan realized he had only one option. He grabbed his flashlight, locked the useless car behind him, and began walking toward the lonely yellow light glowing deep inside the forest, unaware that before sunrise, he would wish he had stayed stranded on that highway forever. The deeper Ryan walked into the forest, the quieter the world became. The roar of the highway disappeared behind him until the only sounds left were the relentless rain, the crunch of wet leaves beneath his boots, and the occasional crack of thunder echoing through the trees. His flashlight barely cut through the darkness, revealing twisted branches that seemed to reach toward him with every step. The yellow light grew brighter, and after several minutes he finally saw its source. An old wooden farmhouse stood alone in the middle of a clearing, its faded paint peeling from the walls and its front porch sagging under years of neglect. Most of the windows were dark, yet one upstairs window glowed with the same warm yellow light he had seen from the road. It was the only sign that someone, or something, might still be inside. Ryan climbed the creaking porch steps and knocked on the front door, but no one answered. He waited a moment before knocking again. Still nothing. Just as he turned to leave, the old wooden door slowly creaked open on its own. A warm gust of air drifted from inside, carrying the faint smell of old wood and dust. "Hello," Ryan called as he stepped across the doorway. His voice echoed through the empty house without a reply. The furniture was covered with thick layers of dust, cobwebs stretched across the corners of the ceiling, and the fireplace looked as though it hadn't been used in years. It was impossible to believe anyone lived there, Yet the light upstairs continued to glow. As Ryan slowly searched the living room, his flashlight landed on a wall covered with dozens of old family photographs. Every picture showed smiling families standing proudly in front of the same farmhouse. But there was something horribly wrong. Every single face had been scratched away so violently that the photographs were almost torn apart. Ryan felt an uncomfortable knot tighten in his stomach. He was about to leave when a loud thump echoed from the floor above. He froze. A few seconds later came another sound, slow footsteps crossing the upstairs hallway. They weren't hurried or heavy. Whoever was walking moved calmly, one step at a time, as though they already knew he was there. Ryan swallowed hard and looked toward the staircase. Common sense told him to run back to the highway, yet curiosity pulled him forward. Keeping the flashlight fixed on the stairs, he climbed carefully until he reached the second floor. The hallway was empty. Every bedroom door was closed except one at the far end, where a faint yellow light spilled across the old wooden floor. Ryan took another cautious step toward it. Just before he reached the doorway, a soft child's laugh echoed behind him. He spun around instantly. The hallway was empty. No footsteps. No shadows, nothing. When he turned back toward the bedroom, the door that had been standing open only moments earlier had quietly closed by itself. Ryan stood motionless, his hand frozen in midair as he stared at the bedroom door. He was certain it had been open only seconds ago. The house had become unnaturally quiet, as though even the storm outside had stopped to listen. Taking a slow breath, he reached for the old brass doorknob. The moment his fingers touched the cold metal, every light inside the farmhouse went out. Darkness swallowed the hallway in an instant. Only the narrow beam of his flashlight remained, shaking slightly as his hands began to tremble. He slowly swept the light across the wooden floor, and what he saw made his heart skip a beat. Small muddy footprints were appearing one after another in front of him. No child was there. No figure could be seen. Yet each tiny footprint pressed into the dusty floor, as though someone invisible was quietly walking through the hallway. Ryan instinctively stepped backward while watching the footprints continue toward him. They stopped only a few feet away. Then, in the silence, he heard a soft whisper that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at the same time. "Don't let it find you." Before Ryan could react, the bedroom door slowly creaked open by itself. The flashlight revealed an old room that looked untouched for decades. A wooden bed stood against one wall beneath a faded floral blanket, while an antique rocking chair moved gently beside the rain-covered window without anyone sitting in it. The steady creaking of the chair mixed with the sound of rain tapping against the glass, creating a rhythm that made the room feel strangely alive. In the far corner stood an old wooden wardrobe with one door hanging slightly open. As Ryan cautiously walked toward it, the wardrobe door slowly opened the rest of the way on its own. Inside hung several old raincoats, yellowed with age. One black raincoat, however, looked different. Water dripped steadily from its sleeves, forming fresh puddles on the wooden floor as though someone had taken it off only moments before. Ryan reached out with trembling fingers and touched the sleeve. It was freezing cold. A sudden flash of lightning illuminated the entire room through the window. For less than a second, Ryan saw a little girl standing beside the rocking chair. She wore a bright yellow raincoat, and long wet hair covered most of her face. She didn't blink. She didn't move. She simply stood there, staring directly at him. Ryan gasped and instinctively turned his flashlight toward her. The room was empty. The rocking chair had stopped moving. Convinced his mind was playing tricks on him, he slowly looked toward the rain-covered window. As he watched, the fog gathering on the glass began to shift. Invisible fingers traced letters across the mist one by one, until a chilling message appeared in front of his eyes. "Leave before midnight." Ryan's breathing became shallow. He looked at his watch, 11:58 p.m. Just then, the bedroom door slammed shut behind him with such force that the entire house shook.